Hi everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell, and we're Bored of It, and welcome to our series, Board Game Highlights, and this is episode 3.
So we're going to talk about what we've been playing over the last brief period. We're going to have some actual reviews of games, and just actually talk about a fair few old ones as well.
Yep.
Some quite new ones, some reviews in progress. So we hopefully have quite a good range of new and old. But let's get straight to it with our first review, which is going to be Crafting the Cosmos. First, we're going to review Crafting the Cosmos, and this was sent to us by the publisher for review. So, a bit of a strange game because it's very abstract.
Yeah.
So there's no explanation really, but you're creating the cosmos. So you're kind of like creating supernovas and nebulae and using like stars and planets and creating life in a very abstract way. So the core of it is that you kind of have this basically plus sign in the middle of the table. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have a marble, essentially, for lack of a better word, that's yours. That's like sitting on a certain action. And then a bunch of other marbles, some neutral, some other players. And basically on your turn, you have to move your marble kind of like one arm around. But you have up to 3 movements, and you can do any combination of yours or the neutral marbles. Mm-hmm. And what you're trying to do here is where your marble lands gives you kind of the main action of whatever their arm is, and each arm is different. And then you'll get like a passive action, which is based on how many marbles are in each arm, including the one where you land. And so it's kind of like, getting some cards or getting some resources, mm-hmm. whereas the action might give you kind of better things, the main action. And you're basically doing that, and then you have this kind of free form phase where you're spending your resources to create stuff to eventually score points. So one thing you're trying to do is you kind of have these nebula tokens, and they require certain type of stars around them to form. So you're trying to get the right stars in position, and then you can flip them and get some points. And then once you have those flipped, you're trying to get life all around them. And then you can kind of, depending on the type of life, get rid of it to complete it, or it just stays. Mm-hmm. And then you get some points for doing that. And then you get some points from like some weird other ways, like this time track, which we won't go into. But that's kind of the core of what you're doing. And it's like you're kind of Euro and mathing it out to get the most points. Mm-hmm. And then you're also going to score for like objectives a little bit into the game, and then kind of every round, for kind of various things. Who has the most helium planets? Who has the most this or that?
Yep, exactly. No, this is one I have actually really enjoyed. Didn't know what to make of it maybe on the first game.
I think that makes sense.
But the more we played it, the more I was kind of puzzling out the different options, I think.
Yeah, there are definitely different directions you can go. So one thing I didn't say that's actually quite important, I think, before you say, is that a big part of this is that you kind of will get these energy cards, mm-hmm. which there's 4 different types. And you can basically trade them in to get like special powers. And it kind of gets, you need more cards of the same type, the more powers you already have. And then generally you will have to spend some sort of energy, maybe random, maybe matching, to activate that power, but you can do it as much as you want. Yeah. And these powers give you a real edge, which is where it comes into what you're saying about how you can kind of lean into different things, especially based on what powers you unlock.
Exactly, yeah, which really depends on, like you said, the type of cards that just maybe happen to come out, that you happen to pull. It can really take you in different directions and different elements of the game that you lean into in terms of what kind of tracks you maybe max out. Mm-hmm. So I think in one game I got a lot of cards that were towards the time track, where it basically you can move like a crystal up and then you get more and more points, basically, the more times that you complete that track. Whereas another time it was more about getting different stars or being able to transform life. So it really takes you in different directions and keeps it quite interesting, I think, game to game. And there's a lot of different decisions to make, I think. It's quite a hard one to describe because it's kind of narrow in the fact that you're kind of doing the same things game to game. That never really changes because you're always moving the marble and you're always getting the same like bonuses from moving the marble, but the things that you lean into change, I think, and then it gives you different things to think about. So yeah, you could really lean into putting the little life tokens around the nebulae, and that gets you more advanced life tokens, which gets you points. Or I think one game I wasn't really leaning into life, but I was more trying to go after like number of completed nebulae. So I was more going for getting a lot of different stars to put around it. And it's quite interesting because it's really dependent on where the opponents and the neutral like marbles end up.
Exactly.
You also want to like lean into that and pivot a bit, because it could be that 3 marbles have ended up in one arm, which can get you a lot more cards, for example. And then you think, okay, I'm just going to try and maximize the cards that I get, which can get me more powers. And yeah, I think it's kind of game to game. You're doing the same things, but the things that you can lean into are different. So yeah, I found it personally a really interesting puzzle. It's quite tactile in a way as well, because the star components and the life is quite
very
chunky,
three-dimensional.
And, exactly, 3-dimensional. So I think that's quite
And there's
cool.
like slots for everything on a dual-layered board, so you're like popping everything in. And then moving it around and stuff. I think, like you say, I think in one way it's limited in these different paths because there's not like that many, but you are right that each game you can feel that you're leaning into a different one, because there's another mechanism that you can move things around. So you can kind of like have all your stars, and then you can focus on just moving them to other nebulae rather than having to get more. Or you can just maximize getting a bunch of them and kind of just filling up everything, right? So there's kind of different ways to go about it in that sense.
Yeah, and you want to, when you get the different types of stars, the nebulae will have common ones that they need, so you have to think about placement as well. So I think there's a lot of different things to puzzle out within a single game, and then the fact that you lean into certain things depending on what cards you get and what powers you get can really take it in different directions. So yeah, overall I think a really interesting little puzzly game. Yeah,
so I really enjoy the puzzle. I think it is it's a very nice, like, kind of plays in a good time, 45 minutes odd puzzle game. I like the kind of, like you say, this puzzle of moving the marbles around and trying to like get what you want while dealing with other players. I like the kind of the powers you get that will push you off in a different direction. But I think, and we both agreed this, the big issue is that while we have said, there's a variety and there's a difference, I think it is very small. And our biggest criticism isn't, that we haven't enjoyed playing it or that we don't want to play it again. I just do feel that there's a limited shelf life, because you are doing very much the same things every game. It's just that you might be doing one more than the others.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know, for me at least, what the longevity is, and that's my biggest criticism. It's not anything to do with gameplay or that I didn't like this bit or I didn't like that bit. It's just that I don't know personally, once we've played it 5, 6, 7 times, do I want to play it anymore? I
think it's quite easy to max out certain things as well. Like even on our second game, there was the time crystal track. You can max it out quite easily. So it's not that you're always trying to push forward and be motivated to optimize your own like gameplay. Because it is just quite easy to get to the maximum of everything, but just explore different areas. So I agree with you. It's game to game, different focuses, but over time, then it becomes ceilinged, let's say. And I think, really enjoyed it, but could maybe benefit from a little expansion just to mix up maybe the different objectives as well, because you score them after a certain point every round, but they're quite samey, I would say. So it's the person with the most amount of life in a certain sector, but there's only 3 sectors. So even if it's a different sector every time, I mean, kind of same. So, I think it could benefit from a nice little expansion. But if it sounds something interesting to you, then we would definitely recommend it.
Again, just no criticism of gameplay. I mean, I think sometimes you can really enjoy a game and just after a certain point, though, you just feel like you've experienced it. It's a lot like watching a movie or something, right? You might not want to watch a movie 17 times, but it might still be something you really enjoyed your time with.
One other maybe like small little criticism is a little bit fiddly as well.
Because of the three-dimensional nature,
Yeah, so the stars are very chunky and very tactile, which is nice.
And the life is very small and goes in between the stars.
The little life tokens are teeny tiny, and then you have to slot them in between, and it's very easy to kind of like knock everything over. I mean, it's, whatever. It doesn't really bother us, but if it's something that bothers you, then it's something to consider.
Yeah, so that is our review of Crafting the Cosmos. Now we have Vantage from Stonemaier Games. This was also a review copy, but this is more of a thoughts in progress. We'll do a full review at some point. And this is a kind of cooperative open world exploration game that is basically emulating in many ways games like Breath of the Wild, very explorative games. It has a lot of influences from games like Seventh Continent, Sleeping Gods. In that it's an open world, you explore basically. So the kind of theme is that you're crash landing on this alien planet, and you and all the other players, they all get kind of dropped off in their escape pods in different locations, and you will draw like randomly a mission, and there's quite a few of them available. So, each player is different as well, that you have this different mission. And then you kind of just explore the world. And the gimmick is that you kind of have these cards with artwork on them showing you the landscape and what's about. And you can generally only ever pick one option on that card in your play of that game. So your options can also, kind of change what happens and what's available. You might get destinies, you might get new missions, you might get equipment, you might get companions. But I think one of the interesting elements in gameplay is that it's a fail forward. Because, it's not even fail forward, you just always succeed. It's just that you have some stats, and it's kind of, you roll dice and you're trying to allocate those dice to certain cards in play. And if you can't, then you kind of might take damage. It's about basically how difficult something's going to be. And how much does that affect you? Because if any of your stats reach 0, the game's over basically, or if you complete a mission.
Yeah, but it doesn't rely on like X number of successes to do the action. Like you said, you always do
It's just, about allocating the dice that you roll, because it might be, this would be, 1 against your time, this is 1 against your health.
Yeah.
If you can't place them on your tableau that you've been building up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have been enjoying this one. I think for me, you will always prefer this type of game to me. These kind of open world narrative ones just don't suit my preferences or my personality as much as like dry energy Euro themed games. I don't have the imagination for this type of thing, and I'm uncomfortable with like open-ended instructions where it's like, just explore. And I'm like, but why? What are we doing here? But
you do have your mission.
You have the mission, but it's so loose as to how you go about it. There's no real direction.
So you hate exploration for exploration's sake?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I want a bit more clear, okay, what we're trying to do. And I know that there's the mission, you're trying to do it, but you could spend half an hour doing it, or you could spend 3 hours doing it, because it's just go explore. So it's just not my favorite type of game. That said, I do think it's one of my preferred ones of this type that we've played, because I think maybe it is the system where you always succeed helps it to not feel quite so, like, to me, like pointless and just explore for exploring's sake. So you always get to do something. So yeah, I think that takes the edge off some other games where you have to get X amount of successes and then just on a dice roll you can fail it and then get damage and that's it. So I think for me this is giving the edge to this type of game. But I mean, you prefer these types of games to me, so what do you think so far?
Well, I prefer them to you. I wouldn't say they're ever my favorite genre of games. I think Yeah, it's very much what you said, that it's never going to be my favorite type of game. But I think a huge component of it is the fact that you always succeed.
Yeah.
And I think that always something's happening. And that is, I think, a big boon for this game. And it's also such an in-depth world because, there's kind of hundreds and hundreds of locations. And each location has all these actions and you can only ever do one in a single playthrough. And they can lead down different paths. There's all these different missions and destinies that, like, sometimes you'll have 3 destinies, but you only complete one to end the game. So I'm quite interested to dig down deeper and see, because I do think it's a game that you learn the patterns as well. And because you keep your memories of the previous plays, you learn how to game the system in a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's something that I struggled with a little bit, is I kept looping back and ended up in the same locations.
Yeah, I don't know, it's crazy. Don't ever become a navigator.
But you kept saying, how are you doing that? How do you not remember that you've already been there? But sometimes you can just go in a loop. And to me, there isn't that direction to say, you interpret things just better than me, I guess, because there's different climates and it might have some flavor text on it. Oh, to the north, it's going to be like really windy or whatever. Yeah. And then I would go north and then it would be somewhere I've already been. And then you would say, but you were already somewhere windy. How did you not know that it was the same place? But I just don't interpret things in that way. Like I didn't interpret it as a clue as to where it might end up.
Yeah.
So for me, less so because I actually started writing down. I had to write down everywhere where I'd already been so that I could make sure I didn't repeat it. But sometimes you just can't know because there are some little story points where you make a choice and you could end up somewhere that you've already been without really intending it or knowing. And then because you can only ever do one like key action in each location, you could end up somewhere and then all you can do is like move on again because you can't do another action, even though you've technically like learned something. You're right there, what you say, in the narrative of things, you can't go and like steal from somebody and then go and help them. Yeah. So it does make total sense that you can't do kind of 2 actions in the same. But yeah, at some points for me, and it's just me, just not that good at these things and interpreting like narrative story points.
No, there is. It's funny when you said about the windy things. I thought you were going to say you have this habit of it being like, yeah, there's like a scorching volcano right in front of you, and you're like, oh, I'll go forward, and then it's like heat damage, and you're like, what? How could have predicted that? It just really cracks me up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'll leave it there with Vantage because we're going to have a full review. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for this kind of explorative game, I think is going to be great for you because the fail forward is terrific. And there's such a world to explore that you can keep coming back and back and back. So yeah, let's see what we think after a few more plays. Now we're going back in time to 2013, Eldritch Horror. And this is a game that before we started the channel, it was probably like the first heavy board game we ever had. And we obviously played it a bunch of times. We had the majority of the expansions. But since we've had the channel, we have just never played it until now, obviously. But it was like 5 years. We just never played it, got it out. And I don't really know why, because I always kind of wanted to, really liked it. But we've gone back to it after all that time. And it's quite interesting, obviously, after playing 400 games in the interim.
Yeah.
It does feel a bit easier now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this game used to stress me out quite a lot. And I think my mindset was just a little bit different, that you could play for, 2-3 hours. Yeah. Quite easily just lose against the game. It must have been one of the first co-op games.
Yeah, pretty much.
We probably ever played. So that was a bit of a new experience. And I just would get like, just spent 3 hours, and that nobody won, like everybody lost. And I maybe couldn't see the point so much, but my mindset is completely different now, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, although we have won the 2 games we've played since we've got it back out.
That's true. Maybe I would be more annoyed if we lost. No, I'm just more used to it now. We've played, like Mansions of Madness and all these different games that are similar, and I can enjoy it now for playing for the sake of playing and trying to beat it and not being so sad to spend all that time and then just not win at the end. But I just didn't have the experience right at the time, and it was something very new. So yeah, very interesting to go back now.
Yeah, so if you don't know, Eldritch Horror is one of the like classic Lovecraft mythos, like cooperative experience. You know, it takes a few hours to play. You have all these investigators. You're running around the world in this one. It's quite globe spanning, and
I like that.
a lot of what you're doing is kind of like reading off cards and then rolling. And so it's kind of like a lot of story, but like kind of unconnected in some ways, because you're like having these experiences, but they also don't necessarily have this continuous like thread through them.
Yeah.
But it's quite good in terms of like a narrative sense, because you're like, oh, I'm in Buenos Aires and I'm doing this, and like meeting with a mysterious man who gives me a book.
I do really like that, actually.
So I really enjoyed the reading even back then as well.
Yeah.
But I think it was really a lot of fun to get it out. I think I'd like to keep playing it a bit more because it's been so long, and like go through all the expansions and try and think about it. But it is a really fun cooperative game. I think it's very thematic with the reason we just said. And I think definitely the expansions improve it. So one expansion adds focus tokens, which kind of like when you don't really have anything to do on your turn, you can take one of these tokens and let you re-roll a die at some point. And I think that is definitely something needed, because the way the game is, you do end up sometimes with like no real action to take.
Yes.
Because you can only do each action, or you can only do an action like once per turn. And you get 2 actions, so you can't like travel twice, for example. So you might be stuck somewhere and you're like, well, I don't have anything meaningful. So I think that's like a huge improvement, some of the expansion stuff. But
yeah, I think again, we said this about another game, I think in the last episode that we did of this, where you think Clans of Caledonia, I think something seems so complex when we were less experienced. And now this seems quite easy.
Yeah,
it was almost,
I agree.
I was questioning a little bit what I was doing, because all you need to do is 5 and 6 are successes, right? Yeah. And you can obviously have some modifiers, but some other games of play, you know, where you roll, it's a little bit more complicated. You have to get 3 successes or like whatever. But this is just, you either pass or fail by rolling a 5 or
I think that's something we really appreciated. Like streamlines the whole thing.
It was really nice to go back to it and like, you know what, it's actually relatively simplistic to grasp, and then you can enjoy the story part more, I think, than being so bogged down in a lot of rules overheads. I think it's relatively easy. Yeah,
I think there actually is funny going back to it, because we've played, I mean, like so much Mansions of Madness in the meantime. There's some things I do almost prefer, such as what you just said, and then also the fact that when an investigator dies, it's just like it kind of affects like a tracker very slightly. But then you just next turn you play as someone else, right? It doesn't end the game. You just pull it out someone else, and you can even go back and get your old possessions. And I think, because although we've like won both our games relatively comfortably, we also had people die. Yeah. Funnily enough, the same person died first in both games.
Yeah, you keep selecting the same character. And
well, it's because the gate keeps like starting in that city, and she has like a good ability. Yeah. But she just always dies immediately. Goes insane.
There's like how many characters to choose from? Like a lot.
We have a lot of 30, probably at least.
Yeah, exactly. I think you should choose someone else next time.
Yeah, well, I will. But yeah, so we've really enjoyed getting this back out. Great co-op game, very atmospheric. A lot going on, like very, like world spanning, because you're traveling around the map.
Yeah, I really like that.
I just have really enjoyed getting it out, and it's really held up considering it's like over a decade old now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm enjoying it more now than when we first got it. So yeah, always interesting to revisit your opinions.
It is a learned muscle of like playing these long games. Yeah. And then failing, basically. It's hard, I think, when you first come to board games to appreciate that it's part of the story. Yes. Like it's like RPGs, you're telling the story, and it's not that it's like a Halifax movie where everyone like ends up really happy at the end, right? Hallmark, yeah. And yeah, same difference. Same. And everyone ends up like happy-go-lucky. It's like, I mean, I think once you get that muscle in you, it's like much more enjoyable, I guess, when things go wrong. Because we just blame the characters. We're like, God damn it, Pauline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. There's some like cool characters in this as well, with, like cool background stories. We should get a group together when it comes to around Halloween and play it, get the candles on, get the moody music on. We love that.
Exactly. So we'll leave it there with Eldritch Horror. But again, we've really been enjoying getting back to. Continuing with the spooky mood, we have Vagrantsong. This is a boss battler from a few years ago. So it's like a campaign game, but each game you have of it will be battling a different boss. So you make your way through a haunted train car. So it's a cooperative game, and you're essentially all playing kind of vagrants, and each vagrant is like a very tiny amount symmetrical, different stats, one special ability, and you're kind of, you get like ability cards, and so you kind of mix and match like what you can do.
You can build them up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of skills.
And then each boss is unique in the way they act, and it has a very like interesting system of you pull these chits out of a bag, and depending on what you pull, that's what the boss does. So it's also a little unpredictable, and the scenarios might have gimmicks and novelty. So I feel like we played it a little bit when we got it, and at some point we went back and we did tried to have a proper campaign, and we got like a bit of a ways in, and then it was like years and years, and then all the kind of expansion stuff from Kickstarter is fulfilled, which is what got us playing it again. And now we've basically committed to doing a full campaign and finishing it.
Yep.
And I think that's something I want to do more of. Like now that things are a bit quieter for us. Yeah. We have all these campaign games, and I think I'd rather go through them one by one like we've done with this, and finish it.
Take the time to complete it,
Maybe like Jaws of the Lion or something like that. Things we never finished.
That's a blast from the past.
But yeah, so what do you think about getting Vagrantsong back out, playing the campaign?
Yes, we always do say on this channel, I feel like we say a lot, co-ops are not really our favourite, but then we talk about co-ops a fair amount.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed getting it out actually. And not to say that I didn't enjoy it the first time around, but again, maybe it just has been a couple of years and I'm just more used to this style of game now. But I feel a little bit more engaged with it somehow this time around. Maybe it's because we are just like committing to completing the campaign in a way.
Yeah.
Like we have our Pride and Joy Geek and Sun table. So we have the game underneath, and then we can put the slats on top. So we've just had it out under the slats for weeks now, right? So whenever we're not playing something else on the top of the table, slats come off, Vagrantsong's underneath. And it has been quite nice to play it like that, rather than getting it out, playing like one or two games, putting it away, and then not coming back for a while. It keeps you more in the story, I would say. So yeah, I think I've been enjoying it a lot more this time around.
Yeah, I think I've enjoyed like the fact that you get to grips with a game and you know how everything works intimately. But with Vagrantsong, because each boss is different, it also allows you that freshness of, you are experiencing very new things every time and dealing with different problems, even though you know intimately what you can do with your character on your turn.
It is a puzzle, basically, of how to go about things with the skill sets that you have.
Yeah.
And that can be different game to game because, like you say, the bosses are quite different. Sometimes it's just that you need to basically beat them up because you beat humanity into them. But we've been playing quite a few scenarios recently where that isn't the main objective.
Yeah, they have a few like gimmicky scenarios.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that keeps it quite nice and fresh as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how the expansion stuff has expanded, and I think eventually we'll talk about it in a proper video, but it's been really nice just having a campaign. And I think one thing we both really enjoy is the vibe of Vagrantsong. It's like kind of like 1920s like rubber hose animation.
Cuphead.
Yeah. So I really enjoy the vibe and like the acrylic standees. There's just a lot.
The direction of the art.
It just oozes like charisma and vibe.
Yeah.
And so I think I like inhabiting that world as well.
Yeah. Although we have a playlist that we use on Spotify, right? there's a little bit too much banjo music in it for me now. Like after like hours and hours of it, start to like get into my brain, and I'm dreaming of like banjos, which is just, that's got a bit much for me now.
But yeah, so that's Vagrantsong, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it more once we finish to discuss the expansions. But for now, we'll go on to our final game of the video. Here we have Anachrony. So Anachrony is a funny game for us because it's one of the earlier games we had when we started like really getting into board games, but it's also one that's continuously fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
So it was a game that we got it once, we played it, and then we didn't play it for a year, and then we got it out again because we knew we'd only played it once and it had been a year, played it again, and then we haven't played it for like 3 or 4 years.
It's one that we have to force ourselves to play for some reason.
Even though we enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really weird. Every time we play it, we enjoy it, but it just is some reason like forgettable to us. And then we're like, you know, we haven't played for ages, Anachrony. We have to put it on the shelf basically to remind ourselves to play it.
So I think we're starting to get into it now because we've like made ourselves play it quite a few times in the last few weeks. So I think we played it twice normal, and then we actually had an expansion that we'd never used, and we threw that in, played that twice, I think. So we've actually played it like a fair few times now. And it's essentially a heavy worker placement game, set in like a dystopian future where there's like a lot of interesting elements. Like you have a bunch of individual types of workers, and they are better at different things, or they might give you discounts on certain actions, and you have to like, it's a very tight resource game as well. You need to spend a lot of resources to even send your people out to do actions on the main board. So there's a lot going on, and the kind of selling point is the time travel element where you can send resources back in time to yourself. So on the start of a round, you can be like, I want these resources, and you just get them. But then you need to send them back, or you're going to end up having negative points because you'll create an anomaly. But yeah, what do you think about getting out after all this time and getting to grips with it properly?
Yeah, again, another interesting one, similar to Eldritch Horror, where now it doesn't seem so intimidating. I think previous times that we've played it, I've struggled to wrap my head around this time travel element, and I found it quite difficult. And I mean, it is very crunchy, and like you said, the resources are tight, but it just seems a lot easier now, and that's very interesting, again, because we've played so many more complex games, I would say.
Yeah.
So now this just seems so much easier to wrap my head around now. It's almost just like a generic Euro. Yeah, okay, the time travel element, you just have to make sure that you have the right resources to send back. But it's just another action that you do. It's not this crazy thing that I used to think that it was.
But do you mean just like the act of playing it in terms of the actions though? Not, because like in terms of actually getting to grips with your strategy, it is still quite tough.
Oh yeah, no, it's a tough game to be good at in a way.
Yeah, because of the tight resources.
I think before I just didn't know how to go about it. Now I know what I'm trying to do. It's just difficult to do it because it's so tight, basically. Whereas I think before I just didn't even know how to even try to strategize because it was so, the time travel element was so abstract to me. Whereas now I'm like, yeah, of course that you just get some resources and then you just do this action, then you send them back.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier now, and I think that's quite interesting. So I think when you first got it out, from the experience we had before, where again it was struggling to hook me in, I was thinking, oh God, what's this going to be like? But it was totally fine. I feel like now we could go another year without playing it and get it back out, and I think I would remember it now. Something about it has clicked with me now.
I think there's something, if you only play it once and it's that heavy a game, a year apart and then multiple years, you're never going to remember. But now we've played it like 4 times within 2 weeks. It
is just go up some tracks, different tracks, get you different, there's different ways to get points. You can build buildings, go up tracks, do objectives. In that way, it's quite similar to any other Euro game. So, yeah, I really like it, actually. Now, I think the little time travel twist is kind of interesting enough to set it apart from other games, but at the same time, it's not like so crazy and hard to wrap my head around as it once was.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in exploring more of the expansions because I've really enjoyed the expansions we have had, which have added kind of like you can send your people out onto like exploration and find stuff, and that's quite fun. And then you can also buy these kind of mechs that don't require workers to run. So then you can save your workers for the kind of buildings on your own player board. And then I think the third one was kind of about like moving, because one of the core points of the game is this asteroid hits Earth, and then that kind of triggers the like late stage of the game.
Yeah.
And you can actually manipulate that through doing certain actions, which it kind of, that one was a bit flat in our first game of it, so I'd like to try it again.
Yeah.
But also just to see the other expansions, because there's a few others, and I think there's probably lots of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, agree.
But yeah, so Anachrony, heavy Euro that we've really enjoyed actually playing properly and getting back to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw more of it in the future. Well, that was our board game highlights. That's what we've been up to recently. We hope you enjoyed the games we talked about. We'll be back soon with more. And please just remember to ask us any questions you might have. And please consider subscribing if you're not already, liking the video, stuff like that. And we'll say goodbye with Megan.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Thanks for watching.